And a pleasant good evening to you. Welcome to the Author Showcase. I'm Keith Williams, your host. And for all of you out there in podcast land, Happy New Year. We are so excited to be with you for a new year here. 2022 has been phenomenal here at the Author Showcase. We had so many incredible authors and publishers and bloggers and influencers from all over the world. And so we would do nothing less than bring you the best and excellence here at the Archer Showcase for 2023. And listen, we're getting ready. We are right in the middle of season 5. And coming up in June, of course, will be season 6. So we definitely want you to be a part of that. So right now we have another great author that is with us. Miss Kim is here with us today, and we're so happy that you are the first person to be a guest here on the Author Showcase for the new year.
Woohoo! Starting the new year off right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not calculating how many people actually, been on here, because this is not the thing. It was like you are a million customers.
Right, right.
Sorry, we don't do that here.
No, I was just having fun with it. Starting the new year off. All right.
It's so we like to be conversational here, not just doing a Q&A or question and answer type thing. We like to be conversational, having a good laugh, having a good joke, being serious. We kind of roll it all, whatever. Just be you.
I have no problem with that.
Okay, so first of all, tell everybody who you are and what you do.
My name is Kim Lenglin, and I am up in the Northeast of the United States, and I am an author. I too have a podcast called Let Fear Bounce, and I also have a little television show called The Right Stuff, The Author's Voice, where I too have authors on, sharing their writing journey and why they write what they write and how they started and all of that. But I currently, the last couple of years, I've been coordinating anthologies, and I'm the lead author in 4 anthologies, and I'm working on the 5th one now, which hopefully will be out and published in April, and it's called Paw Prints on the Couch. So it's going to be stories about people and their pets and how their pets have enriched their lives. So I'm really looking forward to that. That's my newest project. And then outside of that, I freelance for a few people, do some things for them. So I keep busy. I keep really busy.
So tell us about some of the books that you have written. We're going to start with that, first. Then we will get into your podcasting. Of course, you said you have a TV show. We're going to get into that. And also, too, I understand that you are a person of faith.
I am. Yes, I am.
And that would be the last thing that we will talk about here. So this is the Author Showcase. So the main premise is you being a published author. So tell us a little bit about your books.
Well, I started, it was years ago, I think 2014, I was asked to participate in an anthology to provide a chapter. And the book was called Inspire. And the stories were, they were looking for folks with hard-hitting stories that were life-altering and changed how you viewed the world, whether that be experiencing some sort of trauma, what have you, and an illness, what have you, grief, loss. Mine was trauma that I experienced in the military, and I had never shared that story, and I had never considered myself a writer either. And I thought, I can't do this. I just can't. I can't let that out yet. And I'm one of those people that something happens, you shove it in that box in the back of your brain, you shut the lid, you lock it, done. Well, we all know that those boxes have to pop open. They do. They can't stay closed forever. So that's how my journey began. I did say yes to that, participating in that book, and it was freeing for me. Very, very difficult. And it felt like I was taking a big chunk of me and putting it out there very publicly. And but I kept realizing, and my pastor had been telling me, your trauma is going to be someone else's message. You've got to take your mess, turn it into a message, because your trauma is going to be that little light, that little spark of light for somebody.
I get that too, because I have some stories, to share as well. First of all, before you go back into continuing answering the question, I just want to, first of all, thank you for your service, in the military. I am a military, I'm a veteran too, and I'm also dealing with PTSD as well. And,
I hear you. There's really nothing I can say. I hear you and I understand you. Yeah.
And, when they did that celebratory, gunfire, I thought I was in a war zone, and the whole time I was shivering in my bed with the covers hanging over my, head. Was like, when is this going to end? And I'm like literally shaking in my boots.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, well, did you get any sleep last night? How could I? I felt like I was in a war zone last night. It was absolutely correct. But I digress. Please continue.
That's okay. I'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. So that's how my writing journey started. And then I had people approaching me, asking me to participate in other anthologies. And I was like, well, okay. And it was with, different stories. And sometimes it was with my personal story, the traumatic one, maybe, expanded a little bit more. Or then it turned into how I live with PTSD and the steps and the little tools that I have in my tool belt that I pull out 30 years later still. Because for me, that PTSD, I don't look at it as, and I don't like saying post-traumatic stress disorder. I don't like the word disorder. I'm not disorder. The way I look at it is, you've been through something really hard and it was a battle in itself. And
that is a bad label. I give you that. Very terrible.
So that's why I say I live with PTSD. I word it that way. I live with it because it's a part of me, because that's part of my life and that's a part of me, and it's all in how you deal with it. And everybody deals with it different. Everybody's journey's different. And I have bad days. I have really bad days, and I have great days. So, I'm preaching to the choir here. It's sometimes it's a day by day thing, and sometimes it's a minute by minute thing. But you can get through it. There's always a nugget of hope out there. And so my story, that's when I started writing, is I'm tossing those out like a nugget of hope. Letting other people know, okay, maybe you've had this shoved way down for years and years, like I did, and it's starting to creep out, and you don't know what's happening. You feel like you're losing your mind. You can't sleep. You're having nightmares. You're having anxiety attacks in the middle of Walmart. You're not the only one. You're not alone. And so that's why I decided to continue to share that story and then reach out to others to share theirs. And so 2 years ago, at the beginning of the pandemic, a friend of mine from the UK, she's a faith-based publisher, her and I connected seemingly randomly. We connected and I said, hey, I've got this idea for an anthology and I've reached out to some folks and they want to participate. And it's called When Grace Found Me. And it was supposed to be one book, but within 2 weeks, I had enough people to do 3 books. They just kept coming.
I think it's about time that I share, because I hardly ever share, my stories of being in the military. So I think it's about time I do that.
And you should.
So would there be another anthology coming out?
Yes, there will. And you will, I will contact you about that.
Okay. Now,
Yes.
what are some of the, so everybody has their passion and their reasoning for why they decide to write. So what is yours?
I was given a nudge, and a nudge by God. That's how it was for me, to start these anthologies and to continue to do them, not knowing what I was doing. Literally, I had this nudge, and I heard these words. The words were, stories need to be told. And I remember sitting there thinking, going, what? And I'm looking around, and I hear it again, very, very softly. Stories need to be told. And I went, but I've told my story. And so I went, God, if this is you, I've already told my story. You know that. And then I heard it one more time. Stories need to be told. And I realized he was saying stories, plural. And that's how doing these anthologies and writing those stories and getting others to share theirs, that's how that started, was from a gentle whisper I heard while sitting on my back porch on a warm August afternoon.
And this was mentioned like 3 times.
Yes, 3. Yeah.
That sounds very familiar, because when you, for example, before Jesus ascended into heaven, he asked Peter 3 times, "Do you love me?"
Yes. I pay attention to that stuff.
God called Moses 3 times. God called Samuel 3 times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's a resonant pattern, with that,
And those books, it ended up being 3 books.
3 books.
Yes. And then it was just done. I mean, I knew it. I felt it. And then I had this other nudge that I needed to do another one. And the word was hope. And so Thanksgiving Day, literally my most recent one was just published and released, called When Hope Found Me. So yeah, those books came by me receiving, I call them little nudges. And I'm going to keep on going with them. As long as I keep getting nudged, I'm going to listen, because I think if I don't, I wouldn't feel good if I didn't follow those nudges, So yeah, the most recent one was When Hope Found Me. And if that turns into a second one and a third one, awesome. I'm waiting to see how it goes, and it's been an interesting journey, because I know a lot of authors, their stories are of why they write and how they started writing are much, much different than mine. And that's okay. Everybody has their own journey, but I do have a couple of my own books too that I'm personally working on. And one of them is called Nuggets of Hope. And that was another nudge. You got to share a little bit more, share nuggets of how people can find hope and don't lose hope, and where you can find hope. So that's a book that I've got about 3/4 of the way done. I hope to have published this year, hopefully by summer. We'll see. I don't put hard deadlines on myself, because I want it to flow the way it's supposed to, how it's supposed to go. And if I have a day where it's like, I'm not real comfortable, then I know I'm not supposed to be pushing on that day. I kind of wait. I wait for that little nudge. But that will be solely under my name, just me. Nuggets of Hope. And then of course the next anthology that I'm working on is Paw Prints on the Couch. So I'm excited about that one, because I love animals and can't wait to read everybody's stories about how their animals have enriched their lives. So that's a little bit of my journey.
So what are some of the authors, past and present, that or should I say, were there any authors past or present that kind of inspire you to write?
I am an avid reader, and I have been since I could read. My mother used to I would get hollered at for staying up too late. One of those kids under the blankets with a flashlight. I still read. I read 1 to 2 books a week. I'm still an avid reader. I have so many authors, but John Evans is an amazing author to me. I love Nicholas Sparks. It's just, I like that kind of stuff. I used to be into Stephen King. I read a lot of different types of things. And now that I've, all these years later, where I actually call myself an author now, it's interesting when you're reading other people's books to see how they get their flow going, and how they can bring their worlds together and people together, and how they, they weave. I look at it as like they're a weaver, and they're just like weaving this beautiful tapestry. And if I find a book that I read, I always say, wow, that was an amazing book. I just fell into it. You know how you fall into a book and 3 hours later you look up and you're like, oh gosh, 3 hours just went by. When that happens, I'm like, that's a darn good author. And I aspire to be that one day when I grow up.
Wait a minute, you said that you used to come home late?
I would stay up late when I was younger.
Oh, my mom was like, when the lights come on, your butt better be in the house.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The outside street lights. Yes.
Yeah. When the street lights come on, you better be in the house.
Yes. You grew up in the same area I did then, because you better have you better have your butt in the house when those street lights come on and you're grounded.
Yeah. I was actually like, when your parents, go away or something and they let you stay home alone, they call them latchkey kids. So I was a latchkey kid.
Me too. Yeah.
We used to stay home, and we stay home, by ourselves, and we get into all kinds of trouble.
I know. Yeah, and the funny thing is, I grew up and lived in a small town. So the lights on, you're in the house, and my mom worked 2 and sometimes 3 jobs. She was a single mom raising 3 kids. So, it was a little tough. And as an adult now, I look back, I realize just how hard it was for her. And you're like, wow, where did she find the energy and the strength to do that? But we were often on our own, and being in a small town, the neighbors always knew what you were doing. So you couldn't do anything. You couldn't sneak out in the dark, because the neighbors would, as soon as your mom got home from work, they'd be like, hey, we saw such and such going out the back door.
Well, yeah, I mean, I live in a large city, so.
Oh, okay.
Not so, obvious, but, overall, I mean, I guess I can call myself, a good kid. I was a history fanatic. And so, reading was a part, reading books was a part of, being a history, junkie. And, I have certain authors, that I, looked up to, but I was never like a literary type person. I mean, I even hate taking English lit classes, when I was in high school. But one of my teachers, she'd been around famous authors for nearly her entire adult life. So
there are so many amazing authors out there, and a lot of them that aren't even well known. I mean, it's not easy to become one of those John Grishams or, those Stephen Kings. That's not something that just happens overnight for people.
Right.
There are amazing authors, and I've found some amazing, I mean, literally tons and tons of them. Like I said, I read 1 to 2 books a week still. On Kindle Unlimited, when that came about, and you can read, you borrow a book and you can read it for free and then return it and get another. I have read so many books through Kindle Unlimited and found amazing authors, self-published and traditionally published, that are just, and as soon as their next book comes out, I'm like, oh, a new one's coming. Trisha O'Malley, that's one that's fun. She does like a paranormal type ones, and but the way she writes and her characters are so real. And I find myself literally laughing out loud reading her books. And I enjoy books like that too, where, you're like, your head's thrown back in laughter because it's so darn funny.
So
But
is
I
it
found
like
some amazing authors on through Kindle Unlimited.
now that the Kindle, when the first Kindle first came out, that became like, that became like my best friend. Because sometimes I'm like the type of person I like to have it in print. I like to, have it in front of me in black and white. But when the Kindle, came out, it's still in black and white, but you got something like this.
Right, right.
By the way, this is not a Kindle.
iPad.
This is an iPad.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but still. Um, and again, we had some incredible authors that came on here, and and the stories that they tell, about their books, it's like you're almost in this portal that you're actually in another time,
Yes.
in place. I think they call that sensationalism.
I just think it's great when someone can speak and write that way. And you
And
fall, like I say, you fall into it.
uh
It's amazing. Yeah.
but me, being that I'm an opportunity realist, I everything that I write was purely nonfiction. So I'm a nonfiction kind of guy.
That's what I write is nonfiction. Yeah.
Okay, not nonfiction. Okay.
Yeah.
So what?
I've got a fiction book in my head. It's kind of fantasy, kind of. It deals with wood sprites and fairies and animals. And
I had one. I had one a long time ago. I'm like a very long time ago. Maybe what, 1991 or something. We're talking about over 30 years ago. Um, that I have written. I completely lost the entire manuscript.
oh,
Gone.
oh my goodness.
But for some odd reason, I still remember the characters in the book, and the plot lines. It was more of like a historical fiction.
I do. I really enjoy historical fiction. Yeah. Get that down. Get it written down again.
But that's all that's all I remember. I mean, I don't remember the specifics, anything like that. Just the characters, and the plot. What happened in the beginning, what happened, throughout, what happened, at the end, and that's all I remember. Like I said, I'm not really into, writing fiction. To me, getting all of the characters, in my head is just overwhelming. But it's so easy to write, a nonfiction book, because all you're doing is either telling the story, or you're spilling out facts, or maybe your opinion, or something like that. That's easy to do.
It's easy to me too. And it's funny though, when you talk to fiction writers, they said nonfiction's not easy for them.
Wow.
So it's interesting because to me,
it's kind of like
fiction is hard.
Yeah, I wear glasses. I'm nearsighted, which means I can't see things far away. But then you'll have someone that says, "Well, I'm farsighted, but I can't see things closer, to me." So it's kind of like that.
Right, right. Good analogy.
I mean, it's just something that I cannot explain at all. But overall, no two person is alike, and definitely no two writers, are alike. Like I said, we had, in 2022 has been a good year for the author showcase, in which every person that came on here, nobody was the same. Everybody was totally different. Everybody's totally different.
That's what makes it fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And in your writings, it looks like all of your writings have like a similar pattern or a similar theme.
Yes, they do. They seem to. And that's, I write from my heart. And it's my stories, at least my personal stories, they're just raw. And true. And the feedback that I've received from people is, thank you so much for sharing that. And they appreciate the rawness of it and just being honest, not sugarcoating stuff. Life isn't always pretty, and you can't always pretty up something ugly.
And we're getting a lot of that from mainstream media too. They report the hard stuff, but they kind of like put a little sugar sprinkles or something like that. This is not Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Yeah,
we got some real issues that we're dealing with here. And for the most part, I don't think that, me personally, I don't think that they're really doing a good job of doing that. But when I look at various podcasts, I mean, some of these podcasts are extremely raw.
In your face raw. Yeah.
Yeah. They get right down dirty. They like, no topic is off limits. I've done that, plenty of times, news stories, politics, spirituality, religion, and I got friends as well as I got enemies. But, here's the thing. The truth definitely needs to go out. And if the mainstream media is not going to do it, it is up to us.
Yes.
To do it. But then at the same time, when you have a podcast like the Author Showcase, people, they have stories along, those lines. And you never see them on the daytime or the nighttime talk show.
No.
But in actuality, on podcasts, they're getting more exposure on the podcast than they do on on terrestrial media.
Right.
So it's kind of like a win-win here. So,
and that's why I appreciate the platforms that are available. Because I've had some amazing guests on my podcast that just, once I'm done talking to them, they're in my mind for days afterwards. And I'm thinking, all right, if they hit me that hard with their story, I know darn well the listeners are processing that. And it's given people a platform to use their voice for, if they're an author, they talk about their books, or maybe it's what they're writing about. One gentleman, he's been dealing and living with and battling cancer for 10 years. And he's just on this role of he does like 3 to 4, he's a guest on 3 to 4 podcasts per day. He's been on over 500 podcasts just sharing his story. And I asked him, why do you feel so strongly that you need to get this out? And he's like, because he's not sure how much longer he'll be around to share it. And he wants people to know what that journey is and to not be frightened, and to don't let the disease overtake your life. It's just amazing.
I've rarely been on podcasts at all. I mean, I have done a lot of podcasting in 15 years, but very rarely, been on anyone's podcast. I think maybe I should, go into that, because I do have some stories to tell.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You need to be a guest on, because like I said, I have a podcast, but I so enjoy being a guest because it's fun to be on the other side of the mic too.
So let's talk about that, your podcast. What is it about? What kind of guests do you have? And so what does the audience, look like, demographics?
Let's see. The demographics, we were talking about this off mic before we started recording. My demographics are the ages between 35 and 65, typically female. United States, Germany, and the United Kingdom are like the 3 top countries that listen. But the name of my podcast is called Let Fear Bounce. And that came about just as the pandemic was like really starting to explode, that March of 2020. And I was one of those ones who lost their job. I was a road warrior. So I did sales and marketing. And so I was on the road all the time. Well, the doors shut across the entire world. So there was no place for me to go to do my sales and marketing. So I lost my job, and that was a place that I had not anticipated being, and I wasn't sure what to do. And so I said, give yourself 24 hours to be mad. Be mad at the world. Do what you need to do. Get that anger out for 24 hours. And so I did for 24 hours. Then the next day I woke up, sat on the edge of my bed and said, all right, time to pull up your big girl panties. What are we going to do? I just sat there. I'm like, I'm not going to send out resumes and look for another 9-to-5 corporate job. I think I've reached a point in my life that I'm going to make some changes, and maybe this door shutting is my opportunity to open the next one. And let's make something happen, Kim. So I'm talking to myself. I'm like, this is really risky. And it was very risky. And that first year was very, very bumpy. But I thought, I've heard about this podcast stuff. Let's look into it. So I literally got on my computer that day, Googled it, researched for 2 hours, and then recorded and published my very first podcast that same day. Not having a clue what I was doing. I had no idea what I was doing. And I decided to call it Let Fear Bounce, because I was like, there's fear in this world. It's just everywhere in the air, floating everywhere. You couldn't get away from fear at that point in time. I mean, if you remember, it was on the radio and on the television constantly. Don't leave your house.
That's all that's all.
Oh my goodness.
About. I mean, It was just like everywhere. It was just like, but I also have to admit that, when the pandemic first got started, we saw a huge rise in podcasts. It was so many podcasts that that came on. It was just because people are stuck at home. It was like, hey, hey, I need something to do. I can't be in the house all day. Blah 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 blah. And so we saw a lot of people blogging, people doing video blogs, people doing podcasts. We find people doing music concerts,
right,
virtually. People were selling stuff virtually. Nonprofit organizations was fundraising online, like you and I talking on Zoom,
right.
Zoom right now. That's what they're doing. Zoom, all
right.
these podcasting platforms. I mean,
and if that's those people that, and I'm one of them. I was like, I'm going to start something. So I started reaching out to people that I knew to do some freelancing for, because I'm like, well, I have to have some sort of income, and I hated being on unemployment. I'd never been on it before, and I didn't like it. And, so I'm going to get off this as soon as I possibly can. So, doing freelance, had, 3 or 4 clients and then 5 clients. So that helped me maintain, but then I still kept doing the podcast. And I called it Let Fear Bounce, because there was so much fear everywhere. And I was like, no, it's not landing on me. I am not going to let fear land on me. And I'm taking control of my own life. The government's not going to tell me how to live my life. I'm not going to listen to the radio, everything that's out there. I know what's best for me. And since we're stuck at home anyway, let's just give it a try. And so that's how Let Fear Bounce came about. And here I am in my 3rd season, and I'm at it, 165 episodes. And just, that's 165 amazing people that I had the opportunity to meet, that I literally never, ever would have had the chance to meet had I not started that. And I've made some wonderful friends that I'm still in contact with now, regularly. And we do collaboration things with each other every once in a while. But the people that I have on, it's pretty much, anybody. Everybody's got a story. Everybody has a story, and everybody has a fear, whether they want to admit it or not. Now, it could be a big fear, or it could be a fear, something like, I'm afraid of spiders. Well, come on and tell me why you're afraid of spiders and how you're going to beat that fear, so it's anyone. But the interesting thing is, I would say at least 75% of my guests that have come on have been authors. And I was just amazed by that when I started looking more into it. I'd be chit-chatting, they'd send me their bio, and then we'd be talking, and I'd say, wait a minute, did you just say you wrote a book? Why wasn't that in your bio? You didn't tell me you were an author. So it just turned out that way, that 75% at least of my guests on the podcast have been authors. And they share, on podcasts as well as in the written word, things that they've overcome or fears that they've had, and so it's like very conversational, like you and I, like your show is. It's very casual, very conversational. I don't go by a script or anything like that. And every one of my guests have said, you've made me feel so comfortable. And many of them at the end, when we go off mic and I'm thanking them again for being my guest, they'll be like, wow, that went a direction I never planned on sharing. And I'm like, isn't that fun?
Yeah, it is. So I started to give advice to people that either are new to podcasting or if they've been in podcasting, for a little bit. And one of the questions was asked, well, I'm new to this podcasting thing. Should I just, should I have a script or should I just, wing it? What should I do? And one of the things that I mentioned is that if you're talking about something that is going to resonate with a lot of people, I highly recommend that you do some research. So let's say that you're talking about inflation. I'm just throwing it out there. So, you may want to do a little bit, a homework on that and have some notes.
Yes. I always, before my guests come on, they send me a bio, but I always will get on their website. And, and this is for anybody too, a little nugget out there. I'm sure you've shared it with people. I will get on their website, find them on social media. If they have books, I'll try and see a little bit more about that. And just certain topics, yes, I will look a little more into, just so I have a basic understanding, of what might be coming up. But most, for me anyway, yeah, and I do agree. Yes, absolutely. Do some research. I don't typically talk about inflation or even that kind of topic on my show is typically more, it's very personal, story based. So there's a lot of raw, real, personal stories coming out.
Yeah, I was just using that as I was.
No, it was that was a great example because I agree. Do a little research, even if it's just getting on their website. If they have a website, or if they have a podcast, listen to a couple episodes of their podcast, so you can get a feel for how that person is, their personality, and how they talk and stuff like that. It's very well worth taking at least a half an hour to. Plus, it's also, I think, respectful of your guest.
Right. And so that's where a lot of your questions would, come upon. Now, if you have platforms like Calendly or maybe Podmatch, guests that want to be on your show typically will have, a bio. And if they have like a set of questions, that they want you to ask, that's on there. So when I created this Calendly form for OBS, I decided to add that.
Yeah.
I decided to, modify the form so that, we can kind of get a feel of, who they are and, what they do. And one question is there any specific questions that you want, ask? Trust me, I'm no Barbara Walters, but I will ask the tough questions if, necessary. It just depends on what the topic is.
Right.
What the show is. And podcasting is kind of like, to me, almost being an author. So instead of you writing a book, you basically talk.
Right. Well, it's like a talk show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, radio show, however it is you want to look at it. Yeah. And and it's not for everybody, and I'm sure you've seen it, especially when there's that explosion of all these new podcasts. You might come across some and you see maybe 3 to 5 episodes and then that's it. Then they're done. And I was looking into that a little bit more too one day, just because I wanted to. And I was like, there was hundreds, literally, well, more than hundreds, thousands and thousands of new podcasts that popped up but they didn't make it past 10 episodes. They gave
why
up
you
on it.
why do you think that why do you think that why do you think there's been a case like that to where people would do a few episodes, maybe 10 or 20 at the most, and then they would stop?
I think that people don't realize just how much work goes into putting out a good podcast. It's not just chit-chatting with your guest, that. There's editing involved. There's scheduling and research like we just talked. So as an example, my show's a half hour long typically. Prior to that, a half hour to at least 1 hour, I am prepping for that show, doing research, making my own notes, printing things out so I know what topics I actually want to hit on if they're not brought up, and things like that. And then you have your half hour show. And then after that, it takes me an hour to an hour and a half to edit it and then get it ready to upload. And if you're also using it on YouTube, that's a whole nother platform that you have to have everything made for that. So for 1 half hour episode, you're talking 3.5 hours of work. And I think and that's probably minimum. And I think a lot of folks don't realize that, or they're, maybe they were working part-time or still working from home, maybe for a while. And then realized, I don't have time to do this at nighttime, and, I don't want to do it on the weekends. I think maybe they just bit off more than they didn't realize. I think a lot of folks didn't realize just how much goes into, and it's a big learning curve, just with technology. What should I use? If I'm going to be on YouTube, what kind of lights should I use? What kind of microphone should I use? Is my camera okay? There's a lot of things to learn and things you have to invest in. So
I recently purchased a whole lot of radio equipment, and I'm getting ready to do like a community station, and
awesome.
We're going to be hooking up. So it's going to be a part 15. It's going to be a part 15 station, and it kind of made me wish I was in a small town, in that case, because with a part 15 station, and I'm living in a small town, I could probably cover the whole town. But I'm in a larger city, so the best that I could do is probably maybe a 3-mile radius. But then that may be between 5,000 and 10,000 people. You may never know.
So is that FM or AM?
FM.
Okay.
It's
That's interesting.
But I haven't found I found 2 unused frequencies, in my area. The thing that I'm really angry about is that you got one station have more than one frequency.
Oh, see, and I don't know enough. I don't know anything about that, really.
And I'm like, dude, that's crazy. One station having more than one frequency. I understand that you want to, expand, your coverage. Get a relay. So,
yeah.
Get a relay. That way you don't have to use another frequency. Free that up for somebody else. I'm just saying.
Now, so that's completely different than internet radio, right?
Yep. So
did you look into that internet radio?
I did. I did look into that because there are less restrictions in internet radio than it is with terrestrial radio, as far as the Federal Communications Commission is concerned. Because in internet radio, you don't have to have a license. You don't have to have a license, for that. But the thing about internet radio is that it takes a whole lot more work. You have to find a server that will be able to handle the bandwidth.
Okay, yeah.
And there's one particular platform, it's called Live 365, where they have everything built in. You can even play music, on there, and that particular company would pay for royalties, but it's expensive.
Yeah.
It's expensive, and based on the package that you get, the bandwidth, can, vary. So if your radio station is kind of, the only way that that will work is that your radio station is like really popular, and people actually, you can
When you'd
set
have
a
to get commercials too, wouldn't you? You'd have to have,
yeah. Some of the stations do have commercials. That's how they make their money.
right,
The same
okay,
thing as a terrestrial station. They
right,
have commercials because even in a radio station, just like a podcast, you got expenses. Even in podcasting, you got expenses, and you got to find a way to pay the bill.
right.
And
That's
so
interesting though. So you're moving ahead with that, with the radio show?
only thing that I am missing is a building to broadcast.
Oh, okay.
That's the last step, but I have I have the equipment. I purchased the equipment. That was part of my Christmas gift to myself. I bought all the equipment. I got all of the microphones, the mixer, the transmitter, everything that I need to. And believe it or not, some of those things that you can also use, in podcasting.
Yeah,
Because pretty soon in podcasting, you'll be able to take calls. Like if I was to set this up right now, and and I figured out a way that people can call in, and then they can call in, and it would be embedded in this podcast. You can do that too. And it's also an instance to where podcasters are starting to make a living.
yeah,
Just doing that. There's a lot of platforms like Anchor. You can monetize your content on Anchor and Spotify, and if you reach a certain amount of listeners or viewers, depending you have video or audio. Most of mine is audio, but anyway, if you reach a certain plateau of the number of people that listen to your podcast, you start to make money.
hmm,
From that. And then there are
right,
they also where, if you're familiar with National Public Radio, National Public Radio is a listener support network, kind of like PBS.
right,
To
okay,
where
yep,
kind of like PBS, and so with those two. Individual affiliate stations determine what's being played. So it's not like your traditional network stations like ABC, CBS, or NBC, to where
right,
they have a set schedule. You either in or you out.
right,
You're the in there or you out. But with public TV and public radio, they are kind of flexible. And so the content that comes from them actually comes from the individual station.
okay, gotcha,
And
yep,
so they decide what programs to air. Certain, like in smaller markets, they may not be able to play some. They may not be able to broadcast some of the popular TV shows that PBS may have.
yeah,
It all depends on how much money that they're going in. But again, that has never stopped a podcaster from continuing to podcast, because a lot of podcasters, they're not really doing this for the money. They want to relay a message.
right,
They want to step outside of mainstream media and say, okay, we're going to talk about stuff that they don't want to talk about. We
right,
want to give people a platform to where they can be themselves, and they can share their story, and that they
yeah.
can step on a few toes and get on people's nerves. That's my day job.
Yeah.
That's my day job, getting on people's nerves. What are you talking about? I'm talking about business owners. I'm talking about politicians. I love it. And it was like, and I don't even have to be in these government buildings, to get on their nerves. But when I walk into these government buildings, I remember one time I went to my local city hall, and I went to pick up some, went to pick up an envelope. And I checked in with the security guard. And one of the security guards was, looked at me and said, well, what kind of trouble you get into today? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm just picking up an envelope. What kind of trouble am I going to get into just by picking up an envelope? It is absolutely insane
Yeah.
the way these folks are shaking in their boots. And I'm just going to City Hall to pick up an envelope.
Right.
It is beyond crazy. And then I talk about that stuff, on my podcast, and I got a call from a friend of mine. I said, well, I have a podcast. Do you want to be on it? And I was like, well, yeah, I've been trying to get on it for months. And he was like, well, what do you want to talk about? So I did, I gave him a subject. Okay. And I was on there. Man, did I step on a lot of toes. People was actually tuning in, was like, they was really upset, but I stood my ground.
Yeah.
And that's what made podcasting so, wonderful, is that interaction. And then when I got finished, with that podcast, I said, man, looks like I stepped on a lot of toes. He was like, well, yeah, that's exactly what we need. You're not gonna get that, you're not gonna get that, in mainstream media. Have you seen some of them talk shows?
I don't watch TV. Honestly.
That's one of the reasons why I stopped watching TV.
I got rid of my cable and everything. I have Netflix. I use my Fire Stick, my Amazon Fire Stick. That's how I watch TV. So it's all through, Wi-Fi, internet based. I got rid of my cable. I don't watch mainstream TV ever.
I'm looking forward to that Apple Fire Stick I got for Christmas.
Oh yeah. Oh, they're great. They are great.
I'm cutting
I saved almost $100 a month by getting rid of my cable.
Yeah, I mean,
I was like, I don't even use it. I don't even watch TV. Why am I spending this money? So I just use my Fire Stick, and and a lot of times I don't watch TV. I read, or I'm listening to other podcasts, or I'm writing, or I find something on Netflix. I got so tired of mainstream media.
And one of the things I hear people, saying, especially people that are in the mental health field or psychology. I know I'm one of them. I'm a certified counselor practitioner, and it was like, stop watching the news.
Yeah.
Kim, I'm telling you, and this is no lie, I am not exaggerating. There is a local station, where I am. Half of their 24-hour schedule is news. So we got 24 hours in a day, and half of that is news. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And you actually got people that are sitting at home and they watch the news all day. I'm like, how do you do it?
My aunt, it's interesting you brought that up, because I don't watch regular TV, like I said, but my aunt was saying the other day, and she's retired in her late 70s, so she's home all day. She said they've really started to change things up on the local news stations. And I said, what do you mean? You mean they have new people? There's a lot of turnover? And she said, no, where it used to be an hour of news in the morning and an hour at night, she goes, now it's news almost all day long. I said, what do you mean? She goes, they'll have the 6 a.m. and then they have 8 a.m. and then they have 10 a.m. and then they have noon. And it just goes 1, 2, 3. Every hour on the hour is a new news show, and it's all news. And I went, really? And she goes, yeah, you can't find anything to watch. She goes, and I don't want to sit here and watch the news all day. She goes, because it's depressing and it makes me angry. And then I have anxiety. And this is just one person. And there's millions of people that are home every day, especially senior citizens. They have enough to worry about without watching the news, making them go stir crazy and anxious or depressed.
Well, back in the day, there was like 24 soap operas.
Right. Not anymore.
So, if you really wanted to, watch something on TV that's exciting in your home, what do? You turn on the soaps, right?
Uh-huh.
Now, you don't find that anymore.
No.
I mean, you don't find it anymore. So what do people do? Now,
right.
I know people our age. I'm Gen X, by the way. And so, what we do is that we're into podcast.
Mhm.
So, we're into podcasting, and podcasting has become the new TV and the new. That's basically what it is. It's the new TV and the new radio, because in podcasting has to be, whether it's audio or video, has become, in my opinion, more exciting than it is to turn on the TV, unless you're watching unless you've been watching Kevin McCarthy being finally being elected to Congress for the 16th time. Other than that,
Don't get me going on that whole debacle. Okay, this is, and I don't follow politics that
I'm gonna
much.
digress on that, but
Oh, no.
the point is that the point that I'm making is that podcasting over the last 5 years has become not only entertaining, but also very informative. In podcasting, you would hear things that being talked about that you would never hear on the radio,
Absolutely.
never see, on TV.
Mhm.
Why is that? And also, too, I want to point out that when you was talking about the fact that podcasting takes a lot of time. Do you think that people are they see they're romanticizing being a podcaster without actually putting in the work?
That's a good point. That might be a valid point right there. They may have. I tried it just because I wanted something to do. I'm not one that can sit around doing nothing during the day. Never have been, never will be. I am a doer,
And some people consider it to be a hobby. I get, some people consider it to be a hobby. I get that. Then you have some, that actually, make a living like just like a radio DJ.
Right. Oh, I am so far from making a living with mine.
I hope that I get to that point too.
Me too. And I figure, what, if it'll come. I've been telling myself, it's going to roll out the way it's supposed to. I'm just going to follow my passion and my heart for why I started it to begin with. And I'm going to keep on doing it that way. And there have been certain little doors that have opened for me along the way that I'm not looking for it. And I'm not stressing myself out over it. I'm doing it because I enjoy it. And the people that I'm meeting are just amazing. And a lot of times I get so much from my guests, just so much, so many blessings from the guests. And like I said earlier, the connections that you make, you keep in touch with some of them, actually quite a few of them, or every once in a while they'll reach out, 8 months later and say, hey, I was talking to somebody and they mentioned this and I thought of you immediately. Why don't I connect you to? So you're just like, oh, wow, thanks.
Right.
So,
and it's really a network opportunity too.
Absolutely.
I have to ask, the people that you have, in the past, I know I have repeat guests. Because I know in 2022, I actually had a couple of people that have actually been, a repeat guest, because I really enjoy what they pour into.
I've had a few. I've had, I think, 3 that I had as repeat guests, simply because I said, you know what, a half an hour is not even close to enough time for us to keep talking. Can you please come back in a few months? Because I have my scheduled out too, like you had said with yours. But I had a few that I've had repeat, and I'm going to have them on again this year because they're just amazing. They're just amazing people. And like we're doing our talk, we've just kind of veered, all over the place. You never know where the conversation's going to go.
Exactly. And we talked about your books, of course. That's what the author showcase is about. But I believe podcasting, has become an art too. It's like, I'm a digital author.
Yes.
And so we're definitely going to extend the author showcase to, podcasters as well, because in podcasting, people have stories to share, as well. And that has become, an art as well. Instead of in written form, it's in spoken.
Right.
It's in spoken form.
And
So
some people are very gifted that way. They're very, very good guests. Then you have some guests that are just really nervous. It's hard to get an answer out of them. I've had a few of those, which is fine. I understand that folks are nervous, or this is the first time I've ever been on a podcast, so you had to kind of, nudge them along a little bit. But you've got those people that are just natural at it, and super comfortable.
It's in like, maybe they would come on maybe 5 to 15 minutes, beforehand. They say, okay, this is how it's gonna go, blah, blah, blah,
Yes,
blah, blah.
yes. There were a few.
They kind of get a feel of, what it's like being on camera before we actually go on. Because
Right.
some people be like, well, nah, I don't want to, be on camera. Can we shut the camera off? Okay, because I've done that.
Right.
I've done that.
I usually we chit chat usually 10 to 15 minutes prior to recording, especially if I know that's the first time they've ever been on a podcast. And, I just get to know them a little bit more and say, hey, you know what? The whole show is going to be literally how you and I are talking right now. We're just talking. We're just two people having a cup of coffee, getting to know each other, and that's
right.
cool.
But one thing, don't be having no, don't be having no liquor party. Don't be having a
Coffee.
liquor bottle. Yeah.
Coffee.
This is for the viewers, right? Don't, if you want to be a guest, don't be having a liquor bottle.
Oh yeah.
Partying like it's 1999.
No, and even in my show notes, I'm always like, grab your favorite cup of coffee, sit back and relax. I drink copious amounts of coffee all day long. I mean, and this is coffee right here that I'm drinking right now. So I'm always inviting people, hey, if you've got a cup of coffee you want with you, feel free to drink your coffee while we're chatting, because we're just two people getting to know each other,
Exactly. And so this is what podcasting, is all about. And if you are a podcaster, you are not. You are what I call a digital author.
Yeah, and I like how that's put together. That's I'd not heard that. Digital author. Well done, Keith. Right. Well done.
that just came out the top of my head. Hey, it's a new year, so
yay! Write that down.
I am. I'm definitely going to. Remember that.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's awesome. Yeah, I like that.
We are definitely past our time here.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. And so before we go, tell everybody how they can find.
The simplest and easiest way to find everything that I'm doing, whether it's my podcast, my books, or my television show, you can go right to my website, which is my name. It's kimlenglingauthor.com, and I'll spell that for you. KIMLENGLING author.com. Anything you want to know or find out, as well as contact me, you can do it all through my website.
And it has been a tradition in all of our podcasts that we do here at OBS, to where we give the guests the last word. This is where the host would dip it and let the guest have the last word. So, and Kim, I'm going to extend the same thing to you. You're going to have the last word. So, what is the last word for our audience?
A singular word? Just a word?
It could be anything. It could be one word. It can be 1,000 words. It doesn't matter to me. Okay. You have the last word.
Okay. All right. The stage is mine. Okay. We covered so much today, but I think a lot of it was just opportunity and doors that could be open for folks. So don't pass those by, folks. If you've got something in your heart that you want to pursue, or you've always wanted to do and haven't for whatever reason, just give it a try. Keith, he shared his journey about how he started his podcast, and I shared mine, how I started mine, and how we're writing and all of that. And it's all because we had a passion in our heart. So follow your passion. Life gets hard and it feels like it gets in the way, but there will come a day where a door will open and you'll be able to say, all right, now's the time and I'm going to do it. And maybe that time is now for you. So, seize the day, seize the opportunities, and just shine. Let yourself shine, folks. That's my word for the night. Let yourself shine.
All right. And Kim, it has been a delight to be with you on this evening. What a way to begin the first broadcast of 2023. Just sitting down and just having a, honest to goodness conversation, no script. Uh, I don't even think this has been a question answer thing, no Q&As, just straight talk.
Yeah. And we covered a lot, which was fun.
Mhm. And folks, believe it or not, I believe that's going to be the future of podcasting. So you might as well get ready for it. It's coming to a platform near you. So stay tuned, and we're definitely not done. We're going to 2023 with nothing but the best. Great guests, great conversation. Some conversations may be controversial, may step on a few toes, but then at the same time, you will hear a lot of interesting stories, inspirational stories. This is what the future of podcasting is all about. So I hope that you will tune in. This year we got a great lineup for you. We got guests from all over the world that's going to be now on this podcast, but we got several other podcasts, as well. And it's going to be raw. It's going to be controversial. It's going to be inspirational. It's going to be educational. It's going to be informational. So I hope that you will tune in to the Author Showcase as well as our other podcasts for 2023 and beyond. You may never know what you're going to get. So stay tuned. We got a lot in store for you. And Kim, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to tune in today. I tell you, it's been a blast. I had a wonderful time. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It has been a true, true pleasure. Thanks so much.
And that would wrap it us here on the Author Showcase. I'm Keith Williams, your host. Thank you so much for being a part and spending some time with us on this evening. We got another great author coming to you next week. So same time, same station. Until then, have a great evening. Oh, and by the way, Happy New Year
Yay.
from all of us here at the Australia Broadcast Section.